Hey guys, still awake, huh? Whether you're wrapped up in a cozy blanket or just watching one last video before bed, we've all been there. You've landed on the right one. Let me ask you something weird but wonderful. How can a living creature stop breathing, stop its heart nearly freeze solid for months, and still survive? Sounds like sci-fi, right? But it's very real and it's called hibernation. Nature has a way of pressing pause that's far more magical and scientific than we ever imagined. Stick around, and I'll take you on a sleepy little journey into that frozen world. Oh, and by the way, where are you watching this from? Your bed, a couch, a secret pillow fort? Drop a comment below and let me know. So, what exactly is hibernation? I know it might seem like a silly question at first. You've heard the word before. Maybe in a children's book, or a nature documentary, or even from someone jokingly wishing they could hibernate through Monday. But tonight, under the soft blanket of curiosity, we're not here for textbook definitions. We're here to understand, deeply, gently, like how snow understands the shape of the ground it lands on. Hibernation is often described as a kind of sleep, but calling it just sleep is a little like calling a symphony some sounds. It's not wrong, it's just not enough. You and I sleep every night. Our eyes close, our bodies go still, and our brains throw open the doors to a strange little theater of dreams. Inside your skull, while you lie motionless, there's a flurry of activity. Memories get sorted, emotions processed, muscles repaired. It's like your brain becomes a tiny night shift janitor and playwright at the same time. Sleep is movement, just hidden movement. It's rest, sure, but it's also work, beautiful, necessary work. But hibernation is something else entirely. Imagine your body slowly dimming its lights, not just the visible ones, your limbs and your eyelids, but the deep, invisible switches inside. Your heart begins to slow, each beat stretching longer than the last. Your breath grows shallow like a whisper, afraid to be heard. Your temperature drops not just a little, but sometimes drastically. In some animals, the body cools to just above freezing. Imagine that your blood, your organs, your very cells, chilled like a winter stream, and then everything just waits. It doesn't fix, it doesn't plan, it doesn't perform. It simply preserves. That's hibernation. Scientifically, we could call it a state of metabolic suppression, which is accurate, but sounds like something you'd hear in a lab with too much fluorescent lighting. I prefer to think of it as a biological hush, a sacred slowing. Sacred, like the earth pulling a blanket over herself when she's tired of spinning. There are different flavors of hibernation, too. It's not a one-size-fits-all phenomenon. In fact, nature has a whole wardrobe of rest states tailored to the needs of different creatures. There's torpor, a kind of mini hibernation. Some animals enter torpor daily, like hummingbirds, who might dip into it at night to conserve energy. It's like power napping, but for survival. They don't do it for weeks, just hours. A gentle pause, a soft restart button. Then there's brumation, the word herpetologists use, when describing how reptiles like snakes and lizards slow themselves down. Unlike mammals who use fat stores to survive hibernation, reptiles become almost inert, motionless in burrows or under rocks waiting for warmth. They don't eat. They barely breathe. And they certainly don't dream. You see, hibernation isn't just a thing animals do. It's a wisdom they have. It's encoded into them like a lullaby written in their DNA. A story their ancestors told them whispered down through ice ages and endless winters. It's instinct deep, ancient, and beautifully tuned to the rhythms of the planet. Let's imagine for a moment that your own body had that knowledge, that you could tell every cell, every mitochondrion, every pulse of your blood, shh, it's time to rest now, deeply, that you could settle into a stillness so complete, even time would hesitate before waking you. Now I know what you might be wondering, but isn't that dangerous? I mean, dropping your body temperature, slowing your heart rate to near nothing, that sounds more like dying than living. And you're not wrong. It's terrifyingly close to the edge. Hibernation is the biological tightrope between life and death. But here's the thing. Nature is an expert balancer. These animals don't stumble into stillness. They train for it. Evolution molds them, preparing their organs, their blood, chemistry, their very cells for the slow dance of survival. And what's even more remarkable, they can come back. When the time is right, when warmth returns, when food is near, when the danger has passed, they wake. Not groggy or confused, but purposeful, like they never left. Their bodies remember how to live and resume as if winter was just a blink. Some animals, like the Arctic ground squirrel, can hibernate at body temperatures below freezing. Others, like bears, don't cool as much, but still enter a state of extreme energy conservation. It's a spectrum, not a single switch. From the tiniest mouse to the hulking black bear, hibernation adapts to each creature's needs. But no matter the form, one truth remains: hibernation is not about escape. It's about trust. Trusting that the world will still be here when you wake. Trusting your own body to hold itself in delicate balance. Trusting that rest, real rest, is not a weakness, but a superpower. I find that comforting, don't you? Because in our human lives, we don't get taught that. We're told to go, go, go. Rest is indulgent, stillness is laziness, naps are for the weak. But out here in the quiet kingdoms of hibernation, rest is not a sin. It's a strategy. It's sacred. It's survival. And here's where it gets really interesting. Scientists are starting to pay attention. Not just to understand how animals do it, but to see if we might do it too. Could we learn from nature's most efficient sleepers? Could astronauts hibernate on long voyages? Could doctors protect patients by cooling their bodies, slowing their systems? Could you someday choose to pause your body until a cure is found or a storm has passed? That's a question for another night. But it starts here with understanding that hibernation is not simply a long nap. It is a deep biological shift, a transformation, a kind of hidden metamorphosis with no cocoon required. So next time you hear someone say, "I wish I could just hibernate through the winter," smile gently to yourself, because now you know it's not just sleep. It's something else entirely, something more primal, more profound. And perhaps in your own way, as you lie here listening, you're practicing a kind of human hibernation too, slowing your thoughts, softening your breath, trusting in stillness. The night will carry you now. Let it. You're doing beautifully. Let's go back, far back, not just to the age of explorers and telescopes and microscopes, but to the time when fires were our only light and the forest whispered louder than the cities. Imagine a winter night in a tiny wooden shelter. A child presses close to their grandmother's side. Outside, snowflakes spin like lost stars, and inside, stories are the only warmth that never fades. Once, the grandmother says, her voice low and crackling, like the fire, there was a bear who slept through the turning of the moon. Not once, not twice, but through 100 nights. He dreamed so deeply that time forgot him, and when he woke, the world had changed. The child's eyes grow wide. Was he dead? No, little one, just waiting. That story, or something very much like it, has been told across centuries and continents. Long before we had words like torpor, hypothermia, or cryoprotectants, people noticed something strange. Some animals simply disappeared when the cold came, and then reappeared when the world thawed. Where did they go? Did they die and come back? Did they sleep? Did they visit some hidden realm beneath the frost? For ancient peoples, sleep and death were siblings, quiet twins with matching faces. To see a creature grow still, cold, unresponsive, and then move again days or weeks later must have felt like witnessing resurrection. So the myths grew. In Norse folklore, the bear was seen as a sacred being, half of this world, half of another. The Greeks believed that certain gods slept beneath the earth during the winter, returning in spring with new life in their hands. In Slavic traditions, it was said that some forest spirits took the shape of animals and vanished into the ground, watching the world from beneath frozen roots. But even as the myth's whispered observation began to stir, farmers, hunters, and wanderers noticed patterns. The same animals vanished at the same time each year. The same tracks stopped abruptly in the snow, leading to dens or hollows. Bodies that should have perished in the cold instead stirred come spring. Curiosity, like a hungry fox, crept closer. By the 18th century, naturalists began keeping detailed journals. These were the quiet scientists, the ones who sat for hours watching squirrels disappear into tunnels, who gently prodded frogs beneath bark, who noted with wonder that some insects could survive being frozen solid. One such observer was Charles Bonnet, a Swiss naturalist who in the mid-1700s watched insects and frogs seemingly rise from the dead. He didn't know how, but he knew something was happening. Then came the era of enlightenment, when curiosity shaved off its beard and put on spectacles. More refined studies began. People poked and prodded. They measured, weighed, dissected. Some early scientists, believing that animals in hibernation were dead, tried to revive them with warmth water, even small electrical shocks. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes, well, science has its dark corners too. But as the centuries turned, our understanding deepened. In the 19th century, researchers began studying the metabolic rates of animals before, during, and after hibernation. They discovered that in some species, the body's demand for oxygen could drop by over 90%. That brain activity didn't cease, but simply slowed. That certain animals even had built-in anti-freeze-like substances in their blood to prevent ice crystals from forming. Imagine that. Nature had created her own alchemy long before we ever understood chemistry. Meanwhile, in the popular imagination, hibernation was becoming both fact and fascination. Poets wrote about the long sleep of the bear. Philosophers mused on the meaning of life slowed to a whisper. And storytellers, well, they kept the magic alive. Because no matter how much science explained, there was still something enchanted about it. Still is. But perhaps what's most remarkable isn't just what we discovered, but when we discovered it. You see, for thousands of years, humans lived alongside hibernators without truly knowing what they were doing. And maybe that's okay. Maybe some truths aren't meant to be rushed. Maybe the long, slow unfolding of understanding mirrors the hibernation process itself, quiet, patient, and utterly profound. By the 20th century, technology finally allowed us to peer deeper. With thermometers, heart monitors, EEGs, and more, we could now see what the body was doing inside that winter sleep. We learned that bears don't truly sleep the whole time, that they shift, adjust, sometimes even give birth. That ground squirrel's temperatures can drop below freezing, yet their hearts keep the tiniest rhythm. That some frogs freeze solid, their hearts stopping completely, yet their cells don't die. These weren't just survival tricks. These were adaptations carved by evolution, refined over millennia. Nature doesn't panic when winter comes. She prepares. And now in the 21st century, we're not just watching, we're asking deeper questions. Could we mimic this process? Could hibernation hold answers to medical mysteries? Could slowing the body help in treating trauma? Could it protect organs during surgery? Could it be a gateway to deep space travel? In fact, NASA is already studying induced torpor for astronauts on long missions. Think about that. The myths of ancient winter spirits might one day help humans reach Mars. But tonight, I want you to remember something simpler. Long before laboratories and research grants, long before data and charts, there was just wonder. A child staring at the den of a sleeping bear. A farmer marveling at the reappearance of frogs in the spring. A wanderer hearing the breath of something sleeping beneath the snow. They didn't have the science, but they had the story, and sometimes the story comes first. So, as you lie there now, wrapped in your own quiet stillness, think of all the ones who came before you, who stared into winter's face and asked, "How is this possible?" And then think of all the answers yet to come. The history of hibernation isn't written only in books or labs. It's written in the hush of snow, in the slow rise of spring, in the heartbeat that remembers how to pause and how to begin again. Now breathe, deep and slow. You're part of that history too. Let's imagine just for a moment that you are a tiny creature preparing for winter. The winds have turned cold. The trees have folded their leaves. The sun sets early now. Sometimes it feels like it barely rose at all. Food is scarce. The ground is hard, and the air bites more than it kisses. And yet you don't panic. You don't run or migrate or gather in great flocks. No, you do something far more poetic. You begin to disappear slowly, deliberately into stillness. Your body knows what to do. It begins to whisper the old instructions, the ones written not on paper or screens but deep inside your cells, passed down from your ancestors like lullabies coded in molecules. You don't need to think. You only need to let go. First, your heart. That tireless little drummer that has played since the moment you existed begins to slow its beat, not from exhaustion, but intention. A rhythm now reduced to its barest, most essential measure. Thump, thump, pause. Still here, still alive, just resting. Then your lungs. The breath you once drew dozens of times each minute now comes only occasionally, like sighs between dreams. The inhale becomes quiet. The exhale becomes long. The need for oxygen. Minimal. Your whole system learns to live on less. And then comes temperature. Ah, yes, the internal fire begins to dim. Your blood, once warm and red with energy, now cools to match the chill around you. For some creatures, it hovers just above freezing. For others, like the Arctic ground squirrel, it drops below. It sounds impossible, suicidal even. And yet, it works, because the drop is controlled. The body knows exactly how far to fall without breaking. Your metabolism, too, steps off the stage. Imagine your digestive system as a busy marketplace, people buying, selling, processing, storing energy. During hibernation, the shops all close. No digestion, no hunger. The body turns inward, burning fat reserves like logs in a fire. But slowly, oh so slowly, just enough to keep the lights on. And your brain. Well, your brain doesn't shut off, but it does quiet down. The lights dim in the theater of thought. No big performances, just backstage crew making sure the building stays intact. All of this heart rate, breath, temperature, energy doesn't simply stop. It's modulated, tuned down like the volume knob on a symphony. Everything continues, just barely. This is the art of controlled slowing, a masterpiece of metabolic precision. And it's not guesswork. It's not the body flipping a coin and hoping for spring. It's a choreography, a cascade of changes triggered by hormones and enzymes, by light levels, and temperature cues by ancient pathways of adaptation. The pineal gland starts whispering more melatonin into your bloodstream, signaling darkness, signaling rest. Your thyroid eases off its usual hustle. Your adrenal glands reduce the stress chemicals that usually keep you sharp and twitchy. Even your immune system shifts, switching from fight-off invaders mode to maintain and protect mode. There are even special proteins called cryoprotectants that some creatures produce to shield their cells from damage. Think of them as molecular blankets wrapping delicate cell structures in soft insulation, preventing the deadly sharp crystals that regular freezing would cause. Some frogs fill their bodies with glucose, flooding their organs in a sweet, syrupy shield. Others produce glycerol or other alcohol-based compounds that lower the freezing point of their bodily fluids. The result: they can freeze, yes, actually freeze without dying. Now close your eyes and imagine your blood is now moving slowly, thick as honey in winter. Your brain is like a cathedral at dusk, hushed holy. Your organs are working just enough to hold the line. You are no longer chasing life. You are protecting it. This isn't shutting down. This is tuning in. And then there's the fat. Oh yes, hibernators are master fat hoarders. But not just any fat, they build up special stores of brown fat. Unlike white fat, which is for long-term energy storage, brown fat is more like a space heater built right into your shoulders and spine. It burns clean and warm, helping rouse the body when the moment comes. It's especially active when it's time to wake up, like someone lighting a fire before dawn. There's another secret to periodic arousals. That's what scientists call those strange moments during hibernation when some animals briefly and mysteriously wake up. Not fully, just enough. The heart races a little. The breath quickens. The temperature rises a few degrees. No one's quite sure why. Maybe it's to maintain brain function. Maybe to reset chemical balances. Maybe just to remember they're still alive. Whatever the reason, it works. And through it all, the body holds a quiet vigil. It listens. It waits. It does not fear. Because fear requires energy, and energy is precious here. What's amazing is how different animals handle the details. Bears, for example, don't lower their body temperature as much as smaller hibernators. They hover in a kind of light hibernation called winter lethargy, but they still don't eat, drink, urinate, or defecate. And their bodies recycle waste products into proteins and water. No kidding, the bear turns what should be toxic into nourishment, like nature's version of alchemy. Meanwhile, ground squirrels drop their body temps to levels that would kill us. Some frogs stop their hearts entirely. Turtles slow their oxygen use until they can survive in anoxic mud for months. Tardigrades, those microscopic water bears, dry out completely and remain in a suspended state for decades. And then, with a little warmth, a little moisture, they come back. You're probably thinking, that sounds like science fiction. And yes, it does, but it's real, measurable, repeatable, and beautifully humbling. Because for all our machines, our pills, our surgeries, we still haven't figured out how to do what the frog does effortlessly in the dark. We can't freeze a human and bring them back. We can't slow ourselves to near death and return without scars. Not yet. But we're watching, learning, wondering. There's even a field now, synthetic torpor. Scientists trying to replicate hibernation in humans, for medicine, for space, for emergencies. Imagine being placed in a kind of stasis after a traumatic injury. Your body cooled, your metabolism slowed, buying time for help to arrive. Or drifting silently through the stars, asleep for years on a journey to another world. The possibilities are dizzying. But for now, it remains the domain of nature. And maybe that's okay, because in the stillness, in the silence, there's something sacred. A lesson we can't yet recreate, but can still respect. That life doesn't always have to be loud to be strong. That survival doesn't always come with teeth and speed. Sometimes it comes with softness, with surrender. So, tonight, as your breath slows, as your muscles soften, think of the little heart inside your chest still beating. Think of your body alive and capable of extraordinary things, not because it runs fast or burns bright, but because, like the bear, like the frog, like the sleeping squirrel under the snow, you too know how to rest. And maybe, just maybe, that is its own kind of miracle. Let's close our eyes for a moment and ask the kind of question no one really knows how to answer. How long could you sleep if the world allowed it? Not just for a night, not for a weekend, but for a whole season, a whole year. Maybe longer. Nature, it turns out, isn't in any rush, and some of her quietest creatures have made an art out of waiting. Tonight, we journey into the extraordinary realm of time, stretched, folded, and softly forgotten by those who know how to pause for longer than we thought possible. While most hibernators go quiet for a winter's worth of snow, some keep sleeping. They vanish not just from the surface of the earth, but from the very rhythm of it. The world turns, the stars shift, seasons pass, and still they slumber. Let's begin small. Not metaphorically. I mean truly, truly small. A speck, a thread, a microscopic miracle called a nematode, a roundworm curled into the soil of Siberia, buried beneath ancient layers of permafrost. Scientists found it there, locked in ice that hadn't melted in 40,000 years, a time capsule of life sealed in silence, and then thawed, and it moved. No heartbeat, no breath, no warmth for millennia. Yet there it was, wriggling back into the light. It didn't stumble out of legend, it is the legend. This isn't hibernation in the traditional sense. This is something deeper, stranger, more silent. A state called cryptobiosis. Life pressed into pause like a movie, frozen on screen, unmoving, but still there. Now, come closer. I want to introduce you to another little traveler of time, the tardigrade or water bear. It looks like a soft little cushion with stubby legs and a tiny alien face. When things get tough, too hot, too cold, too dry, it folds itself up, dries out almost completely and becomes something called a ton. In this state, it can survive radiation, the vacuum of space, deep sea pressures, and yes, time. Scientists have revived tardigrades after decades, and they suspect these little beings could endure for centuries, even millennia, if conditions are right. They aren't just survivors, they are keepers of time. But maybe you're wondering, what about something bigger? Something we can hold in our hands or see with the naked eye. Let's turn our gaze to a much-loved hibernator, the edible dormouse, a creature with bright eyes and a cozy name. These small mammals in Europe can hibernate for 10 to 11 months out of the year, nearly the entire calendar. When food is scarce or the weather too harsh, they simply curl up and wait. If the summer is poor, they sleep through that too. Their heartbeat slows, their temperature drops, and the world continues on without them, as if they were holding a private appointment with time itself. Then there are bats, masters of long, cold silence. In caves far from sunlight, nestled in deep darkness, some bats have been observed hibernating for over 300 days straight. That's almost an entire year, hanging upside down, breathing once every few minutes, conserving every shred of energy like it's a holy relic. When food returns, so do they. Not with fanfare, just quiet flight. And of course, how could we forget the frogs? Particularly the Alaskan wood frog, that charming little mystery we met before. As winter creeps in, this frog allows itself to freeze solid. Its heart stops, blood turns to ice, organs stiffen. For 7 months, it's frozen beneath the forest floor, looking more like a stone than something alive. Then spring arrives, and something ancient stirs. The ice thaws, the heart resumes, the blood flows, the frog breathes. And just like that, it's back, as if winter was only a long, strange dream. Not to be outdone, the Arctic ground squirrel cools its body below freezing, allowing ice crystals to form between, but not inside its cells. It sleeps in a state so deep it nearly defies classification. Its brain activity falls lower than any known mammal. Still, it wakes. It always wakes. But the prize for most mythic, most astonishing endurance might still belong to the silent ones, the microscopic, the forgotten, the barely alive. Because as science advances, we're discovering more than stories. We're discovering records. Frozen insects thawed after 30 years, plant seeds germinated after 2,000 years. And perhaps one day a creature that blinks open eyes after an entire epoch. What connects them all? Not strength, not speed, but stillness. Deep, patient, purposeful stillness. Not sleep, not death, something between, something that waits. And maybe in your own way, you know that space, the need to step back, to fall silent. To disappear into your own kind of pause, not forever, but just long enough. Because we all carry winter inside us sometimes, the kind of winter where the world feels too loud, too fast, too bright. And in those moments, maybe what we need isn't more motion. Maybe we need permission to stop, to breathe slowly, to sleep deeply, to trust that when the time is right, we'll wake, and we'll be ready. So tonight, let yourself fall into that idea that you, like the dormouse or the frozen frog, are part of this quiet tradition. The sacred art of waiting, the long sleep that protects life from the coldest days. And when the morning comes, when the sun creeps over the hills and melts the frost from the windows, you'll know. Not just that you made it through, but that you did it with grace, with softness, with something animals have always known and we humans are slowly learning again. Stillness is not the opposite of life, it is part of it. Let me tell you a story, not a myth, not a dream. A true story, a little strange, a little haunting, and quietly, deeply beautiful. Once upon a time, not in a fairy tale, but in Siberia, beneath layers of ancient earth frozen solid for tens of thousands of years, scientists unearthed something small, curled, silent, a being that had not moved, not breathed, not felt warmth, since long before the first cities were born. It was a nematode, a tiny roundworm, barely the width of a strand of hair, trapped in permafrost from the Pleistocene, frozen since mammoths roamed, And then they thawed it, gently, carefully, as if waking a ghost. And it moved. No heartbeat, no breath, no twitch of life for over 40,000 years. But with a bit of moisture and a bit of warmth, this quiet creature stirred, returned, continued. Tell me, what word do you use for that, if not miracle? But of course, biology has a term. It always does. Scientists call it cryptobiosis, a state of extreme dormancy where an organism shuts down nearly every process and becomes for all appearances lifeless. But the spark remains, hidden, waiting, a kind of life in quotation marks. And the nematode isn't alone. We've seen something similar in tardigrades, those chubby little micro-beasts we've come to love. When conditions grow harsh, they enter a dried-out state called a ton, becoming nearly indestructible. No metabolism, no reproduction, just a soft hum of potential like a candle flame curled inward. Decades later, given just the right drop of water, they come back to life. No fanfare, no explanation, just movement as if time hadn't passed at all. It's hard to wrap our minds around that, isn't it? You and I, we live by clocks, by calendars. We think of time as something relentless, linear. But these creatures, they break that rule. They pause in time. They blur the line between death and sleep, between memory and rebirth. And what about the Alaskan wood frog? We've met this little wonder before, but tonight we look closer. Each autumn it begins a strange and sacred ritual, allowing ice to form inside its body. Its heart stops beating. Blood flow halts. Muscles harden. The frog becomes quite literally a block of ice, and still does not die. Come spring, warmth returns. Slowly, gently the frog thaws. Its heart resumes. Its lungs fill again. And the frog, unchanged, undamaged, hops back into the forest. It's as if winter was never more than a memory. Scientists have observed these frogs enduring this frozen state for 7 months straight. That's more than half a year without breath, without pulse, without life as we know it. And yet, life remains. Then there's the Arctic ground squirrel. Unlike most hibernators, it allows its body temperature to fall below freezing, something no other mammal is known to do. Tiny ice crystals form in its tissues, but never where it counts, not inside the cells, not where it would mean death. And when the thaw comes, the squirrel stretches, blinks, and returns to the surface as if waking from a short nap, not a brush with the edge of existence. What all of these beings share, whether nematode, frog, tardigrade, or squirrel, is something beyond survival. They represent a different kind of relationship with time, one where waiting is powerful, where stillness is chosen, where returning is never rushed, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? If they can stop for so long, can we? If they can return so softly, can we remember how to come back to ourselves? Scientists are fascinated. Of course, these creatures offer clues, hints, possibilities. Could we use cryptobiosis to preserve organs, delay death, carry astronauts across deep space in silent sleep? Could we one day press pause on human life and press play again? Centuries later, there are companies trying. Cryonics facilities now exist where people pay vast sums to be frozen after death, hoping that future technology might one day revive them. It's not the same, of course. Cryonics isn't proven. It's still a hope, a reaching into the unknown. But nature has already done it, quietly, without wires, without labs, without even trying to impress us. Sometimes the smallest creatures hold the oldest secrets. And perhaps the greatest of those secrets is this: life doesn't always mean movement, and death isn't always the end. So tonight, as you listen, maybe already half asleep, know this: you are part of a world where such things are possible, where hearts can stop and start again, where time can pause, where life can go quiet, not in surrender but in strength. If they can do it, so can you. If they can wait for the thaw, so can you. And when the time is right, when warmth returns, when the stars tilt just so, you too will rise again, softly, slowly, wonderfully alive. There's something about bears, isn't there? Majestic, powerful, yet strangely gentle in the stories we tell. They walk the line between fear and fascination, between wild and wise. And in the quietest months of the year, when snow falls thick upon the trees and the forest holds its breath, the bear does something that feels almost sacred. It disappears, not in death, not in fear, but in one of the most profound acts of surrender in the animal kingdom, hibernation. Let's go there together now, to the dark, soft den where a bear sleeps beneath the world. The entrance is covered in snow, undisturbed by footsteps. Inside, it's warmer than you'd think. Not cozy exactly, but protected. Still, the air is stale but safe. And in the shadows, curled into a gentle arc of fur and silence, lies the bear. Its breath comes once every 30 or 40 seconds. Its heart, once beating around 50 times per minute, now ticks along slowly, barely a dozen beats. Its body temperature has dropped, but not to the icy lows of frogs or squirrels. It hovers just a little lower than usual, like a dimmed lantern in a cave. For months, 5, sometimes 6, this creature will not eat, drink, urinate, or defecate. Nothing goes in, nothing comes out. And yet, it survives. Not just survives, it thrives. How the bear is a master of biological poetry. Before winter, it prepares in silence. It gorges on food, storing up rich reserves of fat, not just to burn for energy, but to sustain every function in the absence of nourishment. This fat is the bear's blanket, its pantry, its fuel for the long dream ahead. But it's not just storage. It's transformation. The bear's body recycles. Waste products that would poison other animals are converted into proteins and water. Muscle mass is maintained, even increased, during complete inactivity. Bones stay strong. Organs stay intact. It is in every sense a closed loop of survival. Even more astonishing, pregnant female bears give birth during hibernation. Let that sink in. In the heart of winter, while the mother bear remains in a near motionless state, her body shifts into miracle mode. Tiny cubs are born blind, hairless, no bigger than a teacup. She does not eat. She does not leave. Yet her body feeds them with rich milk, keeps them warm, nurtures them through their first trembling months of life. And when spring comes, when the snow begins to melt and sunlight filters back into the world, she emerges not alone, but with new life beside her. That's not just survival. That's alchemy. And here's the thing. The bear doesn't hibernate like the others. Its temperature doesn't plunge into danger zones. Its metabolism doesn't fully shut down. Some scientists call it torpor instead of true hibernation. But names don't matter here. What matters is the wisdom, how the bear listens to the rhythms of the earth and answers not with resistance, but with rest. Its body says now is the time to wait. Its mind says, let the world turn without me for a while. Its heart says, I will return when the time is right. There's something comforting about that, don't you think? In a world that constantly demands motion. Productivity noise, the bear reminds us that there is strength in stillness. That doing nothing when done with intention is not laziness, but resilience. We often associate the bear with power, with fearlessness, with charge, and raw energy. But what if its greatest power lies here in its quiet withdrawal, in its ability to vanish without vanishing, to sleep without surrender to rest, so deeply it becomes something sacred. Tonight, as you lie there, perhaps your own breath slowing your own limbs, softening into the blankets. Imagine yourself like the bear. Imagine you've built your den inside your chest. Imagine the world outside can keep spinning while you do nothing but breathe. And that's enough. That is survival. That is wisdom, because you too deserve rest that doesn't apologize, stillness that doesn't ask permission, and the quiet knowledge that, like the bear, you are not disappearing. You are simply becoming, waiting, healing, dreaming. And when you rise again, when the snow melts and the green returns, you'll do so not with panic, not with haste, but with the calm, ancient knowing of a creature that trusted the dark and found light again. All right, come a little closer. Get cozy. Maybe pull that blanket up just a bit more and take a long, soft breath. Let it out slowly like a fogged-up window on a quiet morning. You don't have to do anything right now. You don't have to fix anything or figure anything out. Just be. Tonight we're going to talk about one of nature's strangest, coldest little magicians. A creature that doesn't just survive winter, it becomes it. Let me introduce you to the Alaskan wood frog. It's small, maybe the size of a thumb. Brown and kind of ordinary looking, if we're being honest. Not flashy, not famous. If it were in a school play, it would probably be cast as background frog number 3. And yet, this humble little hopper is capable of something that if you or I attempted it, would absolutely be the end of us. No drama. Just game over. The Alaskan wood frog can freeze, completely. Not just chilly, not just curled up under a log cold, I mean solid, frozen, hard as a rock frozen, and it does it on purpose. You see, when the temperatures in the Alaskan forests begin to drop and the nights grow long and blue and silent, most frogs migrate or burrow down into watery mud to escape the cold. But not this one. Nope. The wood frog has other plans. As the frost creeps in, it climbs into the leaf litter on the forest floor, flattens its little body, and waits. It doesn't hide from the freeze. It embraces it. Now, here's where it gets weird. As the cold sets in, ice crystals begin to form not just around the frog, but inside it. Inside its skin, inside its muscles, even around its heart. Eventually that heart stops beating. The blood stops flowing. Its lungs stop moving. If you picked it up gently, of course, it would feel like a small frozen stone. You could knock on it. Please don't. But you could. And yet, the frog is not dead. No, not quite. Because something is still happening. Quietly. Secretly. Inside those icy tissues, the frog's body has triggered a series of incredible chemical defenses, like a team of miniature winter warriors. One of their most powerful weapons, glucose. The frog floods its system with sugar so much that if it were a person, its blood sugar levels would send every doctor running. But in the frog, that sugar acts like a biological antifreeze. It prevents its cells from forming ice crystals that would tear them apart. It stabilizes the fragile machinery of life, locking it in place for the long frozen wait. This process isn't accidental. It's engineered. The frog's genes, its proteins, its entire little body has been preparing for this since before the first snowflake fell. And once the deep freeze takes over, everything inside slows to almost nothing. Not a pause, a hush, a held breath, a waiting for weeks, sometimes months. And then spring comes. Now picture this: the air begins to soften. The snow begins to melt. Water drips from pine needles like tiny silver bells. The temperature creeps up slowly, cautiously, like a shy guest at a party. And in the leaves, our frozen friend begins to thaw. First, the ice around the heart melts. Then the muscles begin to relax. The glucose flushes through its system, keeping everything safe. The heart gives a little twitch. Then another. Then a beat. And before long, this formerly frozen frog is breathing, blinking, and yes, hopping. Tell me that isn't magic. If someone told you they could stop their heart freeze, their organs become hard as stone, and then come back to life months later without a scratch, you'd laugh. Or call an ambulance. But the wood frog just shrugs. It's not trying to impress anyone. It just knows how to do something we don't. Scientists naturally are obsessed with this frog. They want to understand it, mimic it, maybe even steal a few tricks. Could humans one day use similar methods to preserve organs for transplant? What if we could freeze someone in a trauma state, buy time when time is running out, or take the ultimate nap on a voyage to Mars? We're not there yet, but the frog is, and it has been for millennia. What I love about this frog, aside from the whole defying death by turning into a popsicle thing, is how ordinary it is. It doesn't wear its superpowers on its sleeve. It's not flashy, it's not rare, it just knows. Knows how to listen to the cold, how to trust the freeze, how to wait. And maybe there's something in that for us, because we're not very good at waiting, are we? We like movement, progress, forward momentum. If we stop even for a second, the world makes us feel guilty, lazy, behind. But the frog reminds us sometimes the best thing you can do is be still, not because you've given up, but because you're preparing, you're protecting, you're trusting the cycle. Think about it. The frog doesn't fear the cold. It doesn't resist it. It leans into it. It becomes part of it. It lets go completely because it trusts that warmth will return. That lifelike spring always finds its way back. That kind of trust is rare and powerful. So tonight, as you lie there, maybe with your own heart slowing just a little, your breath softening, imagine that you too can survive the freeze. Not literally, of course. Please don't try. But emotionally, spiritually, mentally. When life feels cold, when everything slows, when you feel stuck in stillness, know that it's not the end. It's the beginning of something very old, something wise. You're not frozen, you're resting. You're not behind, you're waiting. And one day soon, the thaw will come. You'll feel a flutter in your chest, a little warmth in your thoughts, a desire to stretch, to move, to try again. And you will, like the frog, you'll rise, quietly, miraculously, without apology. So take one more deep breath tonight. Let it settle like snow over your thoughts. You are safe. You are still. You are slowly thawing into the version of yourself that knows how to endure the long cold and emerge not broken, but blooming. And that, my friend, is no small thing. That is nature's greatest spell hidden in a frog-sized package. And now you know its name. So, we've met the frozen frog, the sleeping bear, even the tiny nematodes curled in ancient ice. And just when you think nature couldn't possibly get any more impressive, it brings out something even colder, even quieter. Something that doesn't just flirt with freezing, it embraces it fully fearlessly, like an old friend. Tonight, let me introduce you to the Arctic ground squirrel. Doesn't sound very dramatic, does it? Kind of sounds like the character in a children's book who always forgets where he put his acorns. But don't let the name fool you. This little squirrel is a biological legend, a master of the impossible, a creature that quite literally sleeps in the coldest way a mammal possibly can and survives. Let's set the scene. We're in the tundra now, the true north. A place where winter isn't just a season, it's a way of life. Snow doesn't fall gently here, it dominates. The wind doesn't whisper, it howls. And the ground, if you dig deep enough, is permanently frozen. And yet hidden beneath this icy earth, curled in tiny underground burrows, no larger than your arm, lies a squirrel who has made freezing a part of his routine. The Arctic ground squirrel is the only known mammal that allows its body temperature to fall below freezing, sometimes as low as 2.9 degrees Celsius. Just think about that for a second. A warm-blooded creature, a tiny, fuzzy mammal, with bones and blood and a heartbeat dipping below zero. If you or I tried that, we'd be done in minutes. But the squirrel, it just goes on, resting. And here's the really wild part. It doesn't freeze solid like the frog. There's no antifreeze flooding its system, no sugar barriers, no frozen organs. It walks a delicate tightrope between life and death. Just above the edge, cells remain just warm enough not to burst. Blood slows to a crawl. The brain, the literal control center of everything, goes so quiet that brainwaves are barely detectable. But somewhere deep inside, a whisper remains, a thread of life, a heartbeat every minute or so, soft as snowfall. Its burrow is pitch black, buried beneath meters of snow. The squirrel has no access to food, no need for movement, no need even for dreams. This isn't a nap, it's not even deep sleep. It's more like pressing pause on an entire body, like asking every part of yourself to simply wait and wait and wait. For 8 or 9 months, this little squirrel stays in this deep, cold state, not twitching, not stirring, just trusting. And then, with the slow return of spring, something starts to shift. The sun lingers a little longer each day. Temperatures rise, not much, but enough. And then, as if nudged by an unseen conductor, the squirrel's body begins to warm. Not all at once, gently, slowly. The brain flickers. the heart quickens. Muscles shiver not from cold, but as a way of producing heat. And then it wakes. Now here's where it gets even stranger. During hibernation, the squirrel doesn't just stay cold the whole time. It goes through cycles. Every couple of weeks, for reasons we still don't fully understand, it warms itself up entirely on its own, rising to normal body temperature for just a few hours before cooling again to sub-zero. Some scientists think it's to protect the brain. Others say it helps reset chemical balances. The truth. Maybe it's just part of the dance, a reminder that life is still in there, turning over in its sleep. And through all of this bone-deep cold, this icy hush, the squirrel loses almost no muscle, no damage, no brain trauma. It emerges in spring, leaner, yes, but intact, ready, renewed. Think about that. We've spent millions of dollars trying to figure out how to preserve human tissue, how to cool a body in surgery, how to slow death in trauma. And here's this little squirrel no bigger than a loaf of bread doing it every year, for free. No lab coat, no wires, just instinct, just biology, just knowing. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else does the world know that we've forgotten? What kind of wisdom is folded into fur and bone and tiny beating hearts? And maybe it reminds us that we too can survive deep winters. Not the snowy kind necessarily, but the emotional ones, the spiritual ones, the seasons of our lives when everything feels cold and underground, when our thoughts slow, our energy drains, when all we want to do is curl into the quiet and disappear. Maybe the squirrel isn't just an animal, maybe it's a metaphor. Because this little creature doesn't panic. It doesn't try to sprint through winter. It doesn't chase the sun or fight the freeze. It prepares, it listens, it surrenders not in fear, but in trust. It says, this will be hard, but I know how to wait. And you know how to wait too. You know how to slow down when the world feels too much, how to rest when the cold creeps in, how to hold on to that one last ember in your chest that whispers, spring will come. So, tonight, let the Arctic ground squirrel be your companion, your teacher, your tiny, shivering reminder that life can go quiet and still and cold and still return. You're not broken. You're just resting. And when the snow begins to melt, not outside, but inside, you'll feel it. A stir, a shift, a warm breath curling through your ribs, and you'll rise, not hurried, not afraid, but ready, because even in the absolute cold, life remembers how to begin again. Okay, stay with me now. You've made it this far through sleeping bears, frozen frogs, and squirrels that flirt with temperatures colder than a kitchen freezer. You've already wandered the strange frontiers of hibernation, of stillness, of survival. But tonight we go even smaller, even quieter. Tonight we shrink ourselves not just in size, but in expectations. Because the creatures we're about to meet don't roar, don't leap, don't even breathe like we do. They aren't mighty in any traditional sense. They won't win any races. They don't have backbones or warm blood or even expressions we can relate to. And yet, in their own tiny, unassuming ways, they may just be the most invincible living things on this planet. Welcome to the world of the spineless, the soft-bodied, the microscopic, and the miraculous. Let's start with something that sounds like a sci-fi villain, but is really just a very chilly worm. The ice worm. Yes, that's a real thing. These slender blackish worms live on glaciers in the ice itself, not under the ice, not beside it, on it, crawling through snow and crystals like it's the most natural thing in the world. And for them, it is. These worms are active at temperatures most other creatures run from, not just surviving, but thriving in it. At just a few degrees above freezing, they wiggle and feast and go about their icy business. If you bring them indoors to warm up, they die, literally melt away from the heat. Their enzymes, their cell membranes, their entire metabolic setup is built for the cold. It's as if they were born from the snow itself. Then there's the beetle, but not just any beetle. We're talking about the Alaskan beetle, also known as Upis ceramboides, a tough little creature that survives not just cold, but deep freeze. It can survive being chilled to 60 degrees or even lower. That's not chilly, that's Mars temperature territory. And yet this beetle walks away from it once thawed as if it were nothing more than a brisk breeze. Well, like the frogs we talked about before, these beetles produce special compounds, cryoprotectants, inside their bodies. These are basically nature's version of antifreeze. Think of it like molecular bubble wrap that keeps their cells safe when temperatures drop too far. Glycerol, xylomannan, and other sugars help prevent ice crystals from tearing the cells apart. It's chemical wizardry, but built right into their DNA. No special suits, no shelters, just biochemistry. And now, let's go even smaller. I want you to imagine something so tiny you could fit dozens on the head of a pin. Something with a face that looks like it was designed by a sleep-deprived cartoonist, stubby legs like little rubber suction cups, and a body that lumbers more than it walks. Yes, I'm talking about the one, the only, the myth, the legend, the tardigrade, also known as the water bear, or my personal favorite, moss piglet. You've probably heard whispers of this creature before. In science shows, on the internet, in late-night conversations that drift from the moon to immortality. But let me tell you, whatever you've heard, the truth is weirder. Tardigrades are almost indestructible. Seriously, we've tried. Scientists have boiled them, frozen them, dehydrated them, shot them into space, exposed them to radiation that would shred the DNA of most living things, and still, they survive. Not always cheerfully, of course, but functionally, completely. Give them a bit of water, a moment of warmth, and they pick up where they left off, like nothing happened. How? Well, when faced with extreme conditions, the tardigrade doesn't panic. It doesn't fight. It doesn't run. It shrinks into itself, literally. It pulls in its legs, curls into a ball, and enters a state called cryptobiosis. In this state, its metabolism drops to nearly zero. Its water content falls to just 1% of normal. Its DNA wraps itself in protective proteins. And then, silence. It can stay like this for years, maybe centuries, maybe longer. There are claims of tardigrades being revived after 30, 100, even 120 years. And some believe they could, under the right conditions, last for thousands. But this isn't just about durability, it's about trust. You see, none of these creatures, worms, beetles, tardigrades, are hibernating because it's trendy. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're not pushing limits for the sake of drama. They do it because they know how to stop. When the environment says, "Not now," they say, "Okay." When the world becomes hostile, too cold, too dry, too loud, they shrink down, curl in, wait, without panic, without fear. There's something deeply wise in that, something familiar. Because maybe you've had moments like that too, moments when everything felt too much, when the air was too sharp, the light too bright, the noise of life too loud. And maybe like the tardigrade, you've curled into yourself, pulled back, gone quiet. Not because you were giving up, but because you were preserving something. Your softness, your center, yourself. And maybe, just maybe, you thought that was weakness, but these creatures show us otherwise. They are not weak. They are ancient survivors, keepers of time, teachers of stillness. Think of the cryoprotectants in your own heart, the things you use to keep yourself safe in hard times. A favorite book, a song, a quiet walk, a deep breath. Think of how your own biology responds to overwhelm, not by speeding up, but by shutting down, conserving, listening, waiting for the right moment to return. You are not so different from them, you know. You may not be able to survive a trip through outer space yet, but you have your own version of cryptobiosis, your own version of surrender. And if the spineless, the nearly invisible, the creatures that fit on snowflakes can do this, so can you. So tonight, as you lie there in the hush of your own stillness, I invite you to imagine yourself like a water bear, a tiny, brave bundle of softness, impervious to pressure, patient beyond measure, knowing when to move and when to wait. When the world is too harsh, you don't have to fight it. You can pause, preserve, protect your core. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to rest. And when the world is ready, and so are you, you will stretch, you will unfold, you will begin again. Because resilience doesn't always look like roaring. Sometimes it looks like stillness, sometimes it looks like soft armor, sometimes it looks like a beetle in the snow, a worm in the glacier, a tardigrade in space, and sometimes, just sometimes, it looks like you wrapped in a blanket, breathing slow, choosing to be soft in a world that tells you to harden. And that, my friend, is its own kind of survival. Let's go inward now, not into caves or frozen forests, but into the smallest corners of what makes life life. We've already seen creatures that freeze solid, who drift through time in a hush so complete it's almost mythic. But what exactly happens inside when everything outside has gone still? What becomes of a cell in that silence? What becomes of DNA when time stops breathing? Close your eyes if they're not already half closed and imagine shrinking yourself. Smaller, smaller, past your own heartbeat, past blood vessels, past tissues and organs, down, down into the world of the microscopic where cells float like constellations inside you. You're not a person anymore. You're an explorer, a soft traveler moving through the dim, quiet halls of biology. And right now, everything around you is paused. In a frozen state, whether in a tardigrade, a frog, or a beetle, the cells are still there, shaped like delicate soap bubbles waiting. But they're not empty. Inside each one is the instruction manual for life DNA, a long, coiled whisper that tells the cell how to be, how to grow, to repair, to sing its tiny part in the orchestra of the body. But in freezing conditions, that whisper has to go quiet. Not erased, not forgotten, just shelved, like closing a book but marking the page before you go. Now, here's the danger ice. Sharp, crystalline, beautiful, and deadly. If you've ever left a bottle of water in the freezer and watched it split apart, you understand. When water freezes, it expands, and inside a cell, that's catastrophic. The walls rupture, the organelles, the tiny machines of life, tear. So the question becomes, how can a cell survive being frozen? The answer lies in something that sounds almost like poetry. Protective sugars, cryoprotectants. We've talked about them before: glycerol, trehalose, glucose. These molecules flood the cell before it freezes, replacing water surrounding delicate structures and creating a gel-like shield. It's like wrapping your grandmother's fine china in bubble wrap before a long journey through space. The DNA remains wrapped in its nuclear envelope. The mitochondria, the little energy generators, go quiet but intact. The cell's outer membrane firms up, reinforced with sugar and structure. Time doesn't destroy it, it just waits. And here's the other part: repair. When thawing begins, when warmth returns, cells don't just pop back into action like a light switch. They shiver, they stir, they check themselves. Tardigrades, for instance, produce proteins that act like DNA bodyguards, stabilizing the helix, preventing it from snapping. And if there is damage, there are repair enzymes standing by. Imagine tiny librarians dusting off the books of life, mending the pages, making sure the story can continue. Some studies have shown that tardigrades even shield their DNA from radiation, not just freezing. In one experiment, scientists bombarded them with levels of radiation that would turn most other life forms into ghost stories. The tardigrades. They shrugged. Their DNA bent, but it didn't break. And what did break, they fixed. Quietly, elegantly. Inside every frozen cell is a story on pause. Not just genes, but memories of how to be a leg, a liver, a lung, of how to breathe, how to beat, how to bloom again. And this isn't unique to tardigrades. Frogs do it. Insects do it. Even some plant seeds buried for thousands of years contain DNA still capable of sprouting green life when given the right kiss of water. So the next time you see frost on a window or ice blooming over a puddle in the morning, remember that cold doesn't always mean death. Sometimes it means preservation, a waiting, a lullaby sung in molecular silence. And maybe that's a metaphor for more than just biology. because we too go through seasons of freeze. Times when we feel like we're not growing, not moving, when the world is quiet, not in a peaceful way, but in a hollow one. Maybe you've had days or weeks or months like that, where you felt like your thoughts were stiff, your heart slowed, your spirit wrapped in fog. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the cold, your DNA, the part of you that knows how to come back, was still waiting, still intact. We are all of us made to survive the pause. We are built with inner shelves to protect our stories, with repair systems ready to spring into action when the thaw begins. We don't talk about it often, but even in our darkest, stillest seasons, there's a part of us preparing to bloom again. So, as you lie here, maybe with the blanket pulled tight, maybe with a candle flickering beside, you know this, your body remembers. Even when your mind forgets, your cells remember the rhythm, your DNA remembers the warmth, and it is ready. You are not frozen forever. You are not broken. You are simply between chapters. And one day, soon or later, or much later, you will feel something shift. A warmth you hadn't noticed before. A stirring. A whisper. You'll stretch, blink, begin again. And your cells, those quiet travelers of time, will say, "Welcome back." We've been waiting. Let's sink now. Gently, slowly. Imagine drifting downward, not falling, not diving, just descending. Like a feather through still air, or like a leaf through silent water. Let your breath slow with the thought. Let your thoughts ripple and settle. Because tonight, we're going underwater. Not to the reefs or the warm currents. No. Tonight, we visit the cold places, the quiet ones, the shadowy lakes and murky ponds where winter presses heavy against the surface, and time itself seems to forget to flow. Down here beneath a lid of ice, life doesn't stop, it simply hushes. You might think hibernation is only for land dwellers, that the magic of deep sleep and suspended time belongs to bears in dens and squirrels in snowy tunnels. But below the surface of frozen lakes, something just as strange, just as ancient is happening. There are creatures who never leave the water, who don't burrow or fly or flee. They stay. They wait. And they too know how to sleep. Let's start with the turtle. Not the sea turtle with its epic migrations, but the humble painted turtle found in North America. In the warmth of summer, it glides through lily-dotted ponds and sunbathes on smooth logs. But when winter comes and the ponds freeze solid, something remarkable happens. The turtle sinks to the bottom, buries itself in mud, and stops breathing. Yes, you heard that right. The painted turtle spends the winter underwater beneath ice in complete silence. The oxygen in the water is almost non-existent. There is no fresh air, no movement. For weeks, months, it lies still in the dark, and it survives by switching to an anaerobic metabolism. That means no oxygen. Its cells ferment sugars to make energy like yeast, baking bread. It's not efficient. It creates acid buildup. But the turtle has a trick for that too. It uses its shell, yes, its shell, to buffer the acid, to absorb it like a living sponge. Let that image settle for a moment. A creature in the dark, not breathing, not eating, using its bones to balance its blood. A body that becomes its own medicine. And it doesn't panic, it doesn't struggle, it trusts. And then when spring returns, the ice begins to melt. Sunlight filters through the water once again. Temperatures rise. The turtle stirs. Breaths return. Movements begin. It climbs toward the surface, blinking into the new season like nothing happened. No rush. Just a soft continuation of life. Now let's glide over to the crucian carp, a fish with an equally impressive trick. These golden-scaled swimmers live in cold northern waters, often in ponds that freeze completely over in winter. Just like the turtle, they survive months in anoxic water with no oxygen at all. How? By producing ethanol. Yes, alcohol. When oxygen runs out, their cells convert waste into alcohol, which then diffuses out of their gills into the water. It's like they make their own internal antifreeze. They spend the winter in a dream state, mildly intoxicated, suspended in the soft hush beneath the ice. And they're not alone. Other species of fish and amphibians do this too. In shallow lakes across the world, under that thick pane of silence, entire ecosystems enter a kind of synchronized stillness. Movements slow, feeding stops, predators and prey alike dissolve into a shared rhythm, not of survival through struggle, but of survival through surrender. And the water itself becomes part of the lullaby. You see, water insulates. Even when the surface freezes, the bottom stays just above freezing. Around 4 degrees C, enough to keep things alive but quiet. Fish lower their metabolic rate. Their hearts beat fewer times per minute. Some can go days without needing to move. Their blood slows. Their thoughts, if they have them, grow dim, and they float there suspended as if time has lost its meaning. Even frogs, like the leopard frog, will hibernate underwater, tucking into muddy lake beds, their skin absorbing just enough oxygen to keep their internal fires from dying completely. It's not sleep, not really. It's something deeper, something in between. And the stillness down there, it's profound. We often imagine silence as a lack of sound, but underwater winter silence is different. It's not emptiness, it's fullness, wrapped in softness. It's the silence of things choosing not to act, of life trusting the moment, of motion postponed, not forgotten. And here's what's beautiful. They're not afraid. The fish, the turtles, the frogs, they're not scared of the cold. They don't resist it. They let it pass over them, through them. They know the ice will crack, that the sun will return, that breath will come again. And perhaps that's something we can carry with us. Because there are times, maybe you know them well, when the world feels like it's covered in ice. When your emotions slow, when your energy drops to the bottom of the lake inside you, and you wonder, am I doing something wrong? Why can't I move? Why can't I be productive? Why can't I just get out of this freeze? But what if the answer isn't to fight it? What if, like the turtle, like the carp, like the frog, you are simply meant to wait? Not in weakness, but in trust, in wisdom. What if your body, your mind, your soul, what if they know the rhythm better than you do? What if stillness is part of the pattern? And so tonight, as you lie here wrapped not in mud or ice, but in cotton and quiet, maybe you can picture it. The frozen pond, the fish drifting, the turtle resting, the darkness not as something to fear, but as something holding you, cradling you, whispering, don't worry, you are not lost, you are simply underwater. And when the thaw comes, and it always comes, you will rise, not with a shout, not with a splash, but with a breath, a blink, a return. Because even in the deepest water, even beneath the hardest ice, life remembers how to float. And so do you. Let's look up now. Gently tilt your gaze past the ceiling, past the roof, past the clouds. Let your thoughts float into the night sky, past the moon, past the shimmer of stars that blink like ancient eyes, beyond the quiet curve of Earth into the soft black vastness of space. Because tonight we're going further than we've ever gone. Not on a rocket, not in a spaceship, but in a question. A question whispered by every scientist, every explorer, every child who's ever stared up at the stars and wondered, what if we could go there? And the answer, oddly enough, might begin with a frog, or a bear, or a squirrel, or a microbe curled into itself beneath a glacier, because nature has been preparing for space travel longer than we have. While we've been launching machines into orbit and scribbling blueprints for Mars, nature has quietly mastered something that might be even more important than propulsion, or fuel, or oxygen. It has mastered the art of waiting. Think about it, if we ever want to reach Mars, or another solar system, or travel for years across the endless black, we'll need more than speed. We'll need time. Or, rather, we'll need to survive it. Not just survive space, but survive the silence of it. The long, unchanging stillness. The kind of time that stretches so far, it feels like a lullaby sung in a vacuum. And this is where hibernation enters the story. Imagine an astronaut, not floating in a sleek capsule full of blinking lights, but asleep. Truly, deeply asleep. Muscles softened, heart slowed, temperature lowered, a body not dead, not dreaming, just paused. Like a bear in its den, like a frog beneath the snow, suspended, preserved, safe. This isn't science fiction, at least not anymore. NASA, ESA, and other space agencies are researching induced torpor, a human-made form of hibernation, as a way to send people on long-term space missions. The idea is simple and profound. If we could lower a person's metabolism, reduce their energy needs, slow their aging, and put them into a kind of biological sleep, we could save weight, water, food, oxygen, and protect them from the psychological strain of endless time in a metal box. We'd build hibernation pods inspired not by science fiction movies, but by what frogs, turtles, and tardigrades have already perfected. Nature is the blueprint. The challenge, of course, is massive. We don't yet know how to safely put a human into torpor for months or years. Cooling the body too much can be dangerous. Prolonged inactivity leads to muscle loss, bone weakness, immune suppression. But bears already do this with no damage. Frogs stop their hearts and wake up. Squirrels dip below freezing and bounce back. Even tardigrades survive space itself. And so we watch them. We learn. Scientists study how bears recycle waste, maintain muscle, prevent clots. They look at frogs' glucose-flooded systems. They analyze the molecular armor of tardigrades. And bit by bit, we begin to understand hibernation is not shutting down. It's tuning in. It's biological harmony with the environment. It's trust. There are already early trials cooling patients in emergency trauma care to buy time, using hypothermia in surgery, studying suspended animation in animals. The future. Maybe it's not so far away. Maybe one day we'll see astronauts floating toward Mars, not awake and lonely, but sleeping, dreaming, wrapped in warmth, their hearts beating like distant drums, their breath soft as stardust. And maybe, just maybe, they'll carry with them a little piece of bear wisdom, a little frog knowledge, a tardigrade's quiet defiance of death. And you don't need a spaceship to understand. Because you too are made of time, of stillness, of waiting. You know what it means to pause, to rest, to trust in the thaw, to believe that something new will come when the moment is right. And maybe your dreams, your biggest, boldest dreams, need that kind of patience. Maybe the journey doesn't always come from pushing harder. Maybe it comes from slowing down, from conserving, from curling inward and saying, I'll get there. But first, I rest. So tonight, as your breath softens and the stars outside blink with ancient light, I invite you to imagine it yourself, cradled in stillness, traveling through a vast darkness, not with fear, but with peace. You are not frozen. You are not forgotten. You are on your way, dreaming across galaxies, wrapped in silence, headed home. Because sometimes to go further than ever before, all we have to do is learn how to sleep. Let's talk about something bold, something strange, the kind of idea that makes people lean in or lean away. The kind of question whispered in science labs and coffee shops and long midnight conversations between people who dare to wonder, can we really freeze a human and bring them back? Not just survive winter like a bear, not just outlast time like a tardigrade, but truly pause a human life. Stop the clock, defy death, and start again. It sounds like fiction, and in many ways it still is, but the idea, wild as it may be, has a name. It's called cryonics. Cryonics isn't the same as hibernation. It's not natural, not gradual, not gentle like a turtle easing into mud or a squirrel curling into its winter nest. No, cryonics begins after the heart stops, after breath ceases, after what we currently call death. Here's how it works, at least in theory. When someone dies, usually from a terminal illness or incurable condition, their body is cooled as quickly as possible. Blood is replaced with a cryoprotectant fluid to minimize ice formation. The body is then lowered to extremely cold temperatures, often 196 degrees Celsius, stored in liquid nitrogen, sealed in a metal pod suspended in a state where decay no longer happens. And then it waits. Not for spring, not for sunlight, but for the future. The hope is simple and profound that someday, decades or centuries from now, medicine will advance far enough to heal what we couldn't heal today, that the person could be revived, cured, returned, not resurrected by magic, but by science, by possibility. There are already cryonics companies doing this. Real places, Cryonics Institute, Alcor, CryoRus. They store bodies, or in some cases just brains of people who chose to believe that death might not be final. These people aren't afraid of dying necessarily. They're just not ready to stop hoping. Some call it delusional, others call it visionary. Most of us, we're somewhere in between. Because let's be honest, there are problems, big ones. For starters, no one has ever successfully revived a frozen human, or mammal, or even a human cell without damage at such extreme temperatures. Ice still forms, cells rupture, tissues degrade. We can freeze sperm and eggs, embryos, blood, even small organs, but a full body, a full brain with memories intact with personality preserved. That's a challenge we haven't solved, not yet. There are also ethical questions. If we revive someone decades from now, what world would they wake up to? Who would be there to greet them? Would they still belong, or would they be a stranger in time out of step with everything they once knew? And yet, the idea persists, because inside all of us there's a quiet rebellion against endings, a seed of resistance to the idea that death is the only door. Maybe that's why we bury our loved ones gently, why we write stories about immortality, why we send probes into deep space with golden records and songs from Earth. We want to be remembered. We want to return. Cryonics, in its most poetic form, isn't just about cheating death. It's about believing in the long arc of possibility. About trusting that even if the answer isn't known today, it may come tomorrow. And really, is that so different from what nature has been doing all along? The frog doesn't know that spring will come. The squirrel doesn't know if the snow will melt. The tardigrade doesn't know when the next drop of water will wake it. But they trust, they prepare, they go still, and they wait. We are learning slowly how to do the same, not by copying nature perfectly, but by watching her, listening, asking questions like children again. Could we lower a human's temperature just enough and pause the damage of injury? Could we slow down time inside the body enough to heal, enough to begin again? Already therapeutic hypothermia is being used in hospitals to slow brain injury, to save oxygen. We've used cold to protect the heart in surgery, to preserve limbs, to give people a second chance. So maybe the line between cryonics and medicine isn't so wide after all. Maybe we're not chasing immortality. Maybe we're chasing time. Time to heal, time to understand, time to say one more thing, to dream one more dream, to live one more day. And maybe that's okay, because whether you believe in cryonics or not, whether you would choose to be frozen in liquid nitrogen or not, you've probably known the feeling of not wanting something to end, of wishing there was more, of closing your eyes and hoping that when you opened them again, things might be different. And tonight, as you lie here in the dark, listening with your breath soft and your thoughts curling like fog, maybe that wish is enough. You don't need to be frozen to believe in second chances. Sometimes rest is a kind of resurrection, a way of pausing the noise, of resetting the rhythm, of giving yourself permission to begin again, not in another century, but in the next sunrise. So sleep gently, traveler. Let time do what it does. Let science keep asking. Let your dreams carry you not into forever, but into tomorrow. Because sometimes that's the most powerful kind of immortality we have. And now, here we are, together, at the quiet edge of this long, wandering journey. A path we've taken slowly, step by step, through frost-covered forests, under frozen lakes, into the still chambers of creatures who have mastered the art of rest. We've met bears who sleep through hunger frogs, who stop their hearts' worms, who vanish into the deep cold of time. We've floated with turtles in dark water, curled up with squirrels beneath the snow, and whispered with tardigrades who shrug at space itself. And somehow, softly, wordlessly, you've come along, listening, breathing, remembering something you may have forgotten, that life doesn't always mean motion. You see, everything we've talked about, every marvel, every miracle, is really just a way of saying one thing: it's okay to stop, to pause, to become still. In a world that celebrates speed, loudness, brightness, there's something revolutionary about simply resting. And even more than that, there's something ancient, because nature has been doing it forever. Hibernation is not laziness. It is intelligence written in bone. It is trust built into blood. It is a deep biological knowing that says you don't need to be doing something to still be alive. We humans, we forget that. We fill the quiet with noise. We fill the emptiness with screens, goals, deadlines. We chase productivity like it's the only measure of worth. But tonight, in this hush, you've remembered, just a little, that maybe stillness is sacred too. Maybe slowing down is not giving up. Maybe sleep, real, deep, soul-slowing sleep, is not weakness, but wisdom. The kind of wisdom a bear has when it closes its eyes and says, "I will wake when the world is ready for me again." The kind of wisdom a frog holds in its frozen heart, waiting for the melt. The kind of wisdom you feel now, somewhere just beneath your ribs, like a small candle still burning. And there's more, because every story we've shared hasn't just been about resting. It's been about returning. Hibernation isn't the end. It's the beginning of the next chapter. Every creature that disappears in winter re-emerges in spring. Leaner, quieter, wiser. They don't come back with fireworks. They come back with footsteps. Slow, steady. A soft re-entry into the world. And maybe that's you too. Maybe you've been through your own long winter. Maybe you've curled in, gone quiet. Maybe this story found you at a time when you needed permission to do nothing, to just lie there with your heart beating slowly and let the ice pass. If so, I'm glad you're here. Because the snow is starting to melt now. The light is shifting, not suddenly, but you can feel it, somewhere at the edge of your skin, like a bird beginning to sing just before dawn. You're not rushing to wake. You're rising. And that's different. You are not who you were at the beginning of this journey. You are someone who now knows what the bear knows, what the frog knows, what the sleeping earth knows. That stillness is not the opposite of life. It is part of it. So take one more breath tonight, not a shallow one, a real one. In through your nose, let it fill the cave of your chest. Hold it like a truth. Then let it go. Feel the world soften around you. Feel your body, that miracle of warmth and water and waiting say thank you. Let your thoughts drift now. Let the words fade. You don't need them anymore. Let your heartbeat carry you. Let your breath be your lullaby. And if tomorrow comes with noise, with movement, with demands, that's okay. You'll know what to do. You'll move like the bear. You'll rise like the frog. You'll remember how to pause again when the world asks too much. Because now you know how. Sleep well, dreamer. You've earned this.